Success Workshop. Welcome to everybody who's on the line, and hopefully we'll see more of you come online shortly. I'll say hello to you as we go. Today I'm going to be going through the three areas I covered in my earlier update. We're going to talk through the secret that most business owners forget about social media, then go through 8 big mistakes that businesses are still making on social media, and then I'll give you a plan on how you can go about getting yourself set up so you're effectively on social media and achieving what you want to achieve for your business. Now, I tend to be fairly information rich, so excuse me if I rush through things. There'll be a couple of points where you can ask questions. And also, I'm fairly new to webinars, so excuse me if it's a little rough around the edges at different points. So what I'm going to do is go through and give you as much value as I can in the time we have, and then give you an opportunity on where you can go to actually get more if you actually need it. So for starters, when dealing with social media, I think a lot of it is worth thinking about in the way you think about driving cars. Now, when you think about it, most adults get a driver's license and can drive one of these. And they drive quite happily on the road. They're very, very competent, and they don't have many issues at all. But if you actually talk to most people and actually put them in a racing car instead, they probably wouldn't be able to achieve the same level of success on the race course as they do driving around normally. And I think for me, this sort of characterizes the difference I see in social media use between people who are just driving on the road, they're using social media personally for their own benefit, and people who are using social media professionally for business in a more advanced way. And I think it's a mistake that businesses often make, that they put someone in charge of their social media, or they leap onto social media without having a lot of experience or a lot of knowledge about how to use it for business ends rather than for personal ends. And also sometimes the people they put in charge of it aren't necessarily people with the experience or the expertise to actually deliver on what the business actually needs. Now, in Australia, not a lot of small, medium businesses are necessarily even using social media professionally. And it works out, Tenders did a survey recently in March and turned out that 1.4 million businesses, or 70% of them, weren't using social media yet in their business professionally. So even worse than that, when you look at the 30% who are, only 20% of those are actually using actually have a social media plan in place. The others are basically doing social media by the seat of their pants. So this can be a bit of a problem because they're not really structuring how they do social media to be really effective with it. And I think that has a lot of ramifications down the track. Now, it's only small and medium businesses that have that kind of challenge. With large businesses, about 27% of them still don't have a social media plan, even though most of them are online. So again, these are large businesses, corporations in Australia, who really haven't planned out their social media in a sophisticated way. So something to keep in mind, if you don't have a social media plan in place, if you're not using social media, you're certainly not alone. There's a lot of businesses in the same place. Globally, it's a very similar situation. Now, when you consider that around the world, there are 2 billion people now using social media, that's a very large market that you're not accessing. And some recent figures through Access Economics actually suggested that small businesses who are not using social media are leaving, on average, about 30% of their potential profits on the table. So it worked out on average to be about $120,000 per business per year. So if you're a small business who's not using social media professionally, that's the sort of scope of what you're leaving on the table. So that's quite a bit of money. I'm sure if you had an employee who basically said, no, I don't want that tender, I don't want to go for that business, even though it will cost us $120,000 and we're sure to get it, I'm just not going to bother applying for it. Excuse me. You'd probably be a little bit annoyed at them for doing that. So think about that. By making a decision to not be on social media, you're basically deciding to leave $120,000 a year on the table. Now, what is the secret that businesses are not really using online? And I think the way I characterize it, the big one is having an actual social media strategy. Now, it sounds like a fairly simple thing, and that people know, yes, we need to have a strategy. But the fact is that of the businesses actually using social media, a large majority of them don't have a social media plan or a strategy in place to actually guide what they do. So that sort of seat of pants style activity is a real problem when you actually look at it in depth, because it means that rather than planning out what they're doing, they're focused on the really small micro. We've got to get a post up every day. We've got to do this. We've got to do that. They're trying to keep their social media presence flowing over, but they haven't really defined why they're keeping it flowing over. What's the purpose? I think it's a difference between strategy and having tactics. They're focused on the tactics part, so they're focused on the how do I post the next post, what do I do for the next day's update, and they've forgotten about the why are they using social media in the first place, what are they trying to achieve using social media, who are they actually targeting as their audience, and where are they focusing their attentions, on which social media platforms, where's their audience, and they're not asking those kind of questions. So I tend to look at social media from a top-down approach. I like to look at, what are your business goals and what are the goals then you have for social media? Who's your audience that you're trying to reach? What are the tools and content that you're using to actually reach that audience? And then how do you actually go about executing and managing the actual process of that engagement? Now, most small businesses are starting around the content and tools or the execution side, and they're ignoring the top two. And I think, as a small business, you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not starting with the goals and following up with the audience. And now that leads me into the 8 biggest mistakes that businesses are still making online. And these are some huge ones. And again, a lot of them are common sense, but businesses are doing it on a day-to-day basis. And the first biggest mistake is simply not being on social media at all. And as I talked about earlier, 70% of small businesses are in this category where they're not using social media in their business at all. And while for some of them that might be appropriate, that they may not have an audience on social media, they may be targeting an audience that just doesn't use social at all in a professional or personal sense. The likelihood is that for a majority of businesses, their clients are online. And they're looking for them and they're trying to talk to them, and they're probably researching competitors and quite potentially talking to your competitors online when you're not there. So it's a big hole if you're not using social media at all, just simply because you don't have an ability to be part of the conversation, and you don't have an ability to actually influence people who might choose to become your customers, or people who are your customers who are looking around at different options, and they may not even realize some of the products you actually offer or what you can actually provide them as a service. Now, excuse me a moment. The second biggest mistake organizations make online is that they go online and they don't have a strategy. Again, as I said earlier and showed earlier, even those who are online, for small businesses, the majority don't have strategies in place. And even for corporations, a quarter of them don't have social media strategies. Now, again, that drives them into working on a tactical basis, and that may work for day-to-day sort of approach. But the question is, does it actually deliver you the returns, predictable outcomes that you're expecting to get from your social media presence? Are you on social media so you can be on social media? Or is it a way for you to generate customers and sales and basically build your business in various fashions? So you really need to think about, are you on social media for a given reason? And if not, why are you doing it in the first place? And if you don't have a reason for doing social media, then you can probably save the investment and go and invest into something where you are prepared to have a strategy, you are prepared to do repeatable things, and you are actually looking at the ROI you're getting out of it. Now, the third biggest mistake I like to talk about this morning is not aligning social media strategy with the organization's business strategy. Now, I see this time and time again when I work with businesses. I even contend with it myself at times, which is, you have a certain business strategy, you have certain goals that you're trying to achieve for your business, but your social media strategy might be aligned around different types of goals. Quite often when people write a social media strategy, they're focused on things like likes or followers. or retweets, mentions, shares, that sort of thing. But does that actually link back to one of your key objectives in your actual business strategy and business plan itself? If your business plan has something around building influence, building professional reputation, building reach, then quite possibly it is. But otherwise, it's quite possible that your social media strategy doesn't match up with your business strategy. And again, you're firing in different directions. And that can be a real problem if you're trying to actually measure the return on investment of your social media, because it won't align to your business plan in any way. Now, the fourth biggest mistake that businesses make online is simply they spread themselves way too thin. So rather than focus on a couple of channels that they're really expert at, what they do is they hop onto every single new social media channel that comes out. They spread themselves across 20, 30, 40 different social media accounts. And as soon as a new one comes out, they sign up, they start engaging through it. And the first challenge this creates is within the business is the resourcing. Firstly, if you're trying to spread yourself across lots and lots of platforms, that costs a lot of time, a lot of mind space, and it can also cost quite a bit of money. So the first thing is it becomes a drain on your business. The second thing is it dilutes your effectiveness. So rather than focusing on the platforms where your customers are in concentration, where you can have a really big impact, you spread yourself across a whole range of platforms where things are where there aren't so many people and aren't so many opportunities for you to actually achieve your business objectives. So spreading yourself thin is dangerous on social. It can be quite tempting because there's always new social media platforms coming out, and people often have a fear of missing out. But it's quite important with your social media strategy to be quite disciplined and limit yourself to the platforms where your customers are and within the resources you have as an organization. Now, the next mistake is related to that, but it's a little bit more focused on sometimes looking at those new shiny things that come out. And businesses that get excited about shiny things and they go and hop on the new, they drop off the old, they're often looking for the next big thing or the next viral trend or whatever it happens to be. And that can be the platform or it can be in the content that they're putting out there. And while there are advantages to aligning yourself with the trends that are going on in the community and reflecting on what the community thinks is important at the time, it's important to be careful about how much you're focusing on the shiny things that are happening and whether you're taking your attention away from the normal day-to-day running of your social media channels and keeping the flow going in a consistent way. Now, I think it's important, again, to reflect on where are your customers, what are they doing online. If you've got an audience that does leap from thing to thing, that is into new and shiny things, then there might be a reason for you to follow them and to exhibit similar behaviors, but you still need to manage it and still be mindful of where they're coming back to, where you're having the biggest reach and exposure, and how you maintain a consistent relationship with them over time. And that brings me to my sixth mistake, which is being inconsistent. Now, if you look along the top and think of it as a sort of the content that somebody might be posting over time, they post consistently for a bit, then they really drop out, then they're consistent again, drop out for a bit more, then they kind of bit all over the place and they drop off again. The problem with being inconsistent when you're posting content is that people have the habit of engaging with you, and it can break the rapport you establish with the audience and the trust that you're building up with them. Now, it can be difficult to maintain consistency, particularly if you have inconsistent chunks of time yourself. But there's ways to get around that by using scheduling, by pre-planning content, by having a full-blown content plan in place. And what that allows you to do is to constantly reach out and engage with your audience in meaningful and relevant ways, in a way that keeps them coming back to you and builds a sense of trust and a relationship with them, where they know they can expect a certain thing from you on a certain day, on every week. And that sort of consistency builds a relationship that can then be leveraged into stronger sales relationships, and just helps you become more shareable in terms of your content. So consistency is very, very important in social media. And again, if you want to be consistent, one of the ways to ensure it is to limit the number of platforms you're on and focus where you're strongest, where your audience is. So very important to work that together. The next issue is actually around tracking the content and the platforms you're actually using. So testing and measuring and testing. If you're failing to do that, then the likelihood is you don't know what content is effective, you don't know which platforms are effective for you, and you don't know whether your social media strategy, if you have one, is actually meeting the goals of your business. So it's very important to have a measurement plan in place, which actually details how you're going to go about measuring the effectiveness of your content and your actual channels. And also important within that is not just measuring the obvious things, like the numbers they throw up on the screen, like the number of followers, the number of retweets, the number of shares. Those sort of numbers are great for social media networks when trying to get people to engage more, because they encourage individuals to try and say, oh, I have a bigger number of followers than you. But having lots of followers isn't that much value if those are the wrong followers. And if they're not engaging with you in a productive way, and you're not generating the returns you expect from your social media presence. So it's also important to look at the more important things, like, are people looking at your content and then moving through into your website? How many are moving to a purchase decision? How many are strengthening their relationships with you, actually connecting with you in various ways? So when building your social media engagement, you've really got to think about how are you actually going to measure it, and that should form part of your strategy for social media, is how you're actually going to measure it and qualify the returns you're getting to align them with the goals you're expecting through your business plan. Now, the eighth mistake, the final one, is also quite a large one, and this is around content. So when organizations use social media, a lot of what they're doing is broadcasting content, or they're responding to other users. And if they're responding with the wrong content, either it's the wrong type, the wrong topic, the wrong tone, it might be sent out at the wrong time, or it may just simply not connect to the audience anyway. So with content, it can be difficult, and there's an entire discipline around content marketing that looks at how do you actually design the content that's going to be right for your audience, that's going to get you cut through, that's going to get you engagement, and that's actually going to lead you to stronger relationships and better sales outcomes. But with all of that, you don't necessarily need to have a content marketing expert involved in your team to achieve that. A lot of it is around understanding who your customers are, how you relate to them, what your place is as a brand. And all of this comes back to, again, your social media strategy and your business plan. So where you define what brand image your company presents, who your target audience is, and how you go about engaging with that target audience. So content, again, should always come back to, again, making sure that it's relevant, timely, and specific, and value for your audience. And value is a very, very important thing now online, because people will share content that they find is valuable and they believe that other people might find valuable. And so value is very, very critical to bake into the social content that you're getting out there. Now, I've gone through the 8 areas. I just wonder if anybody has any questions or wants to raise anything. So I'll just give it a minute or two for anybody to ask any questions they have. So you'll see the little place where you can ask questions up to the right of the screen. I'll see anything that goes up there. I'm going to have to lean into the screen to actually see it. And while you're doing that, I'm going to have a quick sip of my tea because my throat's a little bit catchy today, as you probably noticed. Okay, it looks like we don't have any questions at the moment. People are happy with just the flow of things at the moment. So what I'm going to go on with is talk about now the solution side. So we've gone through, what's the big secret that businesses are ignoring, and that's having a social media strategy. and we've gone through the 8 mistakes that businesses are still making online, which is everything from simply not being online through to having the wrong content, sometimes in the wrong place, and just focusing on the wrong sort of tone for the audience they're trying to reach. So moving on to the solution side. Now, what I'm going to give you is basically an approach that will work for any business, that will basically get you started with social media. It doesn't require a lot of effort initially from you, but it does require consistent effort. So there's a level you need to get in, you need to engage, and you need to maintain that level. Now, I call this Plan A. Now, the way it works is quite simple. You pick a business goal, one of the business goals from your business plan. You pick one of your products, whatever your products or your services are. Service works just as well as a product that you actually want to achieve that goal for. Then you pick a target audience. Now, I'll talk about the target audience in more detail, but you need to pick who you're actually going to aim. Then you pick a social media platform that you're going to use to actually reach that audience for that product. And then you choose a message or a theme that's actually going to go through your communication. And finally, you consistently engage on that theme through that platform to that target audience about that product for that goal for a quarter, 3 months. Okay, at the end of that 3 months, you'll be able to then measure and assess how much engagement you've had and actually see how effective you've been and whether that theme resonates with that audience. And that drives you forward into the next 3 months, where you can repeat the same process with a different message, possibly a different audience, and actually try and build the engagement further. Now, I won't talk about the business goal or the product, because those things are specific to you as a business. So, businesses may have a goal to increase their sales, to attract new customers, to build their brand awareness, to make people aware of new products that they may have on the market. But there's a variety of different types of goals that might apply for you. I'm also not going to talk about the product or service, because again, that's specific to your business. But when it comes to the target audience, the way you actually go about identifying them is through an approach I use quite commonly with clients. Is basically, first you locate them, then you listen to them, then you latch on, start engaging with them through the appropriate platform that they're engaging through. So starting with the locating, how do you actually find the audience you want to actually reach? The easiest way is actually to do it offline, not online. Firstly, talk to the customers that you wish to engage online. Who's your ideal customer? Do you already sell to these people? If you do, engage with them either through telephone, through when they walk in the shop, or through however you normally engage with customers, and just ask them, what sort of social media platforms they use and what do they prefer, and just get a bit of feeling for their habits online. A lot of them will be happy to share that kind of information with you. You can say that you're thinking of increasing your engagement online, and you want their thoughts on where they prefer to engage, so you're actually engaging through the right place to actually reach them. So that's important. Once you've actually identified from a group of them where they're likely to be online, what sort of platform it is, possibly down a level what sort of groups they're actually engaged in, then you can move on to the listening stage. And this is where you basically get onto the platform that they've indicated they're most likely to engage through, and actually start engaging, well, start looking at what they're doing. You don't start engaging it, you actually start looking at what they're doing and listening to what they're saying and how they say it. So how do they interact with the people that they interact with? Do they talk about your company? Do they talk about competitors? Is there a issue or a challenge that they commonly talk about that your company could resolve? What sort of language do they use when they actually talk to each other? Because when you're engaging with customers, it's very important to do so in the customer's language. So first you have to know what that is. The final step, once you've spent a couple of weeks actually following them and listening to them through that platform, is to actually set up your platform, you set up your account on that platform, actually start engaging with them directly. It's a latch-on part. So that should also guide you on the platform that you pick to engage. So it isn't the platform necessarily that you're most comfortable with. It's a platform that your customers are most comfortable with. And you'll have to learn to get comfortable with it to actually engage with them in a meaningful way. So once you've selected that, you've got the platform as well, and then you can move straight on to the message. Now, when I speak about message, I'm talking about having a theme that you can have through all of your engagement and your information that you're providing through that platform over that 3-month period. So that can be portrayed through video, through images, through text, or in some other ways. You can use things like infographics. You can use things like even through advertising and other things, but you consistently engage with or reflect back on this particular theme. So that could be related to one of your audience's challenges or one of their desires. Something like they want to be seen to be early adopters, then have a theme of how your product is, how your company is more advanced, and then don't demonstrate that by saying that your company is more advanced, but demonstrate it through sharing content that demonstrates that your company is ahead of the curve. So you basically use theme messaging throughout that quarter, and that helps you basically establish the brand value you want for your company, and it gives reasons for your audience to engage with you because your values reflect their values. Now, of course, it has to be authentic. If you're an organization that is not that is focused on security and stability rather than change and being ahead of the field, then you need to reflect a theme that is in line with your values and where you're actually positioning yourself. But focus on that single theme throughout that 3-month period as sort of the bedrock underneath all the content you're putting out there. Now, it's also important that you follow as a very simple approach in terms of getting content out there. Call that the ready, fire, aim. It's commonly used by startups, this sort of approach, to basically say, if you've got a new product you want on the market, get it to a minimum status, get it out there, and then get feedback from your audience, which helps you develop and focus the product, refine it down to be precisely what people need. So from that basis, when you've got a message to go out there, whether it's a video you've just recorded on your smartphone, or whether it's an image, but you don't think it's exactly perfect, but it's pretty good, get it out there to start with, and then refine it down. See what reaction you get. People actually appreciate things being a bit rawer online, as hopefully you appreciate this webinar. But what you also find is that you'll get quite a bit of feedback, and that will help you refine down to what you actually need to be putting out there to really resonate with the audience. So the faster you get the content out there, the faster you can iterate and actually improve it and deliver what your customers actually need. Now, in saying that, it's still important that the content actually be reasonably good. It still needs to reflect what you're actually trying to achieve. So it has to reflect your message. It has to be relevant to your target audience, and you have to, as much as possible, reflect their language and tone and the way they actually engage. Now, the other part to think about is how you actually get it out there. And there's a couple of different ways. There's push and there's pull strategies. And to look at this very basically, if you're looking at pushing things out there, paid advertising is generally the way people do it. So they either pay for a little ad, a display ad, a search ad, a Facebook or a Twitter ad, something like that, or they pay somebody to go out there and say nice things about their product. So that's kind of a push strategy where you're basically trying to push the product onto people and say, you should buy it because of these things, because it meets these needs for you, and it will actually take you further. A pull strategy is often more effective online. Push strategies still work, but they cost you more money and they can take longer to deliver results. But a pull strategy is where you actually create content that people find is shareable. And that's about embedding a lot of value into it and actually engaging very actively with people. And that becomes shareable content that you can actually get out there, and people will keep sharing and generating, and it will generate you far more attention online than just getting an ad out there. The other way is to get investments from people that basically say, hey, you have a great product, we used it, we love it. You know, we like the look of your service, we're going to give it a try. Those sort of endorsements, people respect peer endorsements and peer feedback on products far more than they respect it from authority figures or central bodies. So with the endorsements, it's very valuable to get them, but at the same point, they can't be bought and they can't be forced. So you basically need to have value in what you're offering, as you would already in your products, but you also need to be able to give people ways in which they can express their endorsement. So, you know, give them ways in which they can basically say, I really love using your product. Because if you don't give them those routes very quickly, they'll tend to just not say anything. People generally only comment online if they particularly love something or they particularly hate something. So if you make sure that it's love because you're delivering a good product, surrounded by good service and lots of support, then the next stage is to say, hey, if you've had a great experience with my product, why not share it on my page or through your own channels so that more people can take advantage of it as well. And that's a good way. Those endorsements can be very, very effective to actually gain traction online. Now, again, with all of this, it's all structured around setting your goals, identifying and understanding your audience, getting the right tools and content in place, and then executing in a consistent way. So again, it's following this kind of model. And I can't emphasize that enough. I've worked with so many organizations that they pick a tool and they start with the tool and then they say, okay, how are we going to use this tool to reach the audience we want to reach and maybe achieve this goal or that goal? And they shape their goals around the tool, or they try and convince audiences to come and use a tool that audience may not be comfortable with. So always very important, start with your goals and then identify your audience and then work down to content and tools, not the other way around. So in terms of plan A, putting the whole strategy together again. So you're picking a goal, a product, a target audience you're going to try and reach, a social media platform you're going to engage through, a message, a theme that you're going to be putting out there consistently. You know, it's underlying all the ways you communicate it and aspects of it. And finally, you're going to do it for a quarter, for 3 months. And if you can commit things as plan A, then you'll find that you'll get quite a lot of focus in what you're doing on social media, and it will drive more success for you as well. So I'm going to ask again at this point, are there any questions from anyone in going through that plan? And I have gone through it fairly quickly. And I understand if that might be a little bit quick for people. There will be a replay of this video up later, so you can always catch it to refresh what you're actually looking at doing, and that'll help you get through the process. So I'll give you a minute or two just in case there's any questions. See if anything's coming through from anyone. And a hello to those of you who joined a little bit late. I'm glad you made it to the webinar. As I said, there'll be a replay up. So the bits you missed at the start, you're able to catch on the replay. And I have an email out about that shortly after the webinar's finished. Okay. Well, I guess at this stage, the questions seem to be focused more around on the content side, and that happens quite commonly because content seems to be a real focus for people on social media at the moment. And I agree, content is absolutely king. It is very, very critical in terms of your social media. If you don't have the right content, everything else falls down. But at the same point in time, having the right content isn't going to work for you if you're not using the right channels or have the strategy behind it, and you're actually ensuring that that content actually meets your strategic goals as a business. But in terms of the content, you know, you're looking at, you know, the questions seem to be around looking at the ratio of video versus images versus text. I know a lot of people find video confronting, and good video is hard to do. It's very, very hard to film professional video. That's why there are professionals who charge lots of money to do it. And getting a professional video done can be a time-consuming, expensive process. And if you're filming something like a television ad, you know, they can be quite expensive processes as well in terms of who you actually engage to do it. But video now is far more accessible than it has been in the past. Firstly, you have the tools to actually record a video on your mobile phone, so very, very simple to do. Secondly, it's relatively easy to get hold of video editing software that will do basic editing quite quickly. And it's also possible to access video professionals via services such as Upwork, which will allow you to quickly add special features onto the video. So that can be done quite quickly and easily and cheaply. So video doesn't take as long or cost as much as it used to. Equally, these days with social media, people expect a more laid-back experience. So they're not necessarily looking for the most professionally produced, high-quality videos and imagery. They're quite comfortable with things filmed off somebody's mobile phone just while something is happening, or to show a particular thing in a good light very, very quickly. Also, videos much shorter than they used to be. So average length of video on YouTube, if you want somebody to watch it all the way through, it shouldn't really push much beyond 3 minutes, and preferably around 90 seconds or thereabouts, to actually get people to actually watch it all the way through. So generally, if you're worried about doing video, the first thing I suggest is do really short videos, focus on one thing at a time, show things that are real, and where possible, just take a quick snapshot. The lighting doesn't have to be the best, the location doesn't have to be the best, but you do have to make sure that you're to the point, you focus on the message you're trying to get out there, and it's sharp and quick, and people can watch it, then move on or share it very easily and quickly. So yes, video gets a far more hits than text does these days. Images also gets more hits than text, quite a bit more. And that can be quite a lot easier if you're not prepared to go whole hog with video as yet. But of all the three, if you can do video, then I suggest doing at least some, even as simple as just very short how-tos to say how to do this with our product, or this is an example of how we deliver our service in practice. Just very simple things that very quickly communicate to an audience what you're about and how you deliver things, and get you out there and very, very visible very, very quickly. So moving on, I'm coming close to the end of the webinar. So what I'd like to talk about is how you can get more. If you're interested in learning more about these topics and interested in getting yourself set up, whether you're not on social media yet, whether you've started on social and are kind of a little bit unsure where to go next, or whether you've had a social media presence for a while, but it's just not achieving what you wanted to achieve, it's using too many resources, it's not delivering returns, it's just not firing for you in any way. What I'm doing is I'm actually helping people out with a 3-month coaching program, which basically takes organizations through developing their strategy through to actually executing and delivering their social media presence and engagement on an ongoing basis. So I deliver it online. It's 2 hours video commitment each week. And plus there is some homework that you'll have to do, because there's a whole heap of templates and frameworks that you'll need to take and basically set up for your business, so that you have everything in place so that your business actually can fire on. So the major topics I talk about throughout the course of it is we go through goal setting and how you actually identify and select and basically define how you measure the right kind of goals for your social media engagement, how you identify and listen to and engage with your audience, your target audience, how you actually select the right social media platforms and tools to use to actually carry out it, and how you limit them to where your audience is, where you get the greatest bang for the buck. Go through how you manage your social media presence on an ongoing basis, including any sort in place to do that, how you deal with ensuring you're consistent in terms of your engagement. And also moving into that, a lot around the governance you need in place, such as if you need a moderation policy for using a service where you're having a lot of interaction with people, where you're doing things such as escalation strategies, if there are things that happen that you need to deal with in different ways, and how you deal with social media crises, and having a plan in place that allows you to manage them effectively as part of your business, and then deal with the aftermath as you sort of go through a recovery phase. And social media crises can be, sometimes they're caused by an organization themselves through some sort of error by a staff member, or some sort of product issue. Sometimes they're totally out of the blue. They're due to things that happen in the environment or other things. I know an organization that's name was ISIS. So when everything happened in the Middle East, suddenly they had a branding issue, and they had all kinds of things they had to manage around their branding message and changing their in order to remove the negative association. So there's things that can happen that are totally outside your control that you still need to manage for your business on social media as well as on other channels. Next, we go into measurement, how you actually set up the right kind of metrics to map how your social media is going versus your business goals, and actually connect it all the way back. And finally, we spend quite a bit of time on content. How do you actually develop or repurpose content to be appropriate for your audience? How do you actually curate third-party content where relevant to actually build for your business? And the various ways you engage with people to ensure that the content that you're actually generating is actually delivering the returns you expect. So there's quite a lot in the course. We go through it at quite a pace, so well worth coming on board, and you'll get a really thorough look across all the aspects of planning and preparing and setting up your social media, getting ready to actually implement, and actually starting implementing and managing your presence. So some of the things you'll get throughout the course is you'll get a social media strategy validated that I'll be working with you on putting together through a set of templates and other tools. You'll have basically all your social media platforms put in place, and you get assistance in making sure they're set up so that you have the right imagery, you have the right pages, the right content, the right profile information, so that you're actually best placed to actually leverage them to achieve business success. We'll go through and set up a management plan that'll actually take you through the process of managing your social media on a day-to-day basis, the resource requirements, how you actually manage the time and different factors you need to bring into it. Have all the governance set up with moderation policies, crisis plan, escalation, and triage plans that I talked about. You'll have a 12-month content plan in place, in shape, that will allow you to basically go through a paint-by-numbers approach to generate content as needed throughout that, and you'll have a lot of it in place so that you can basically consistently put out quality content that is relevant to your audience at the right time, that basically encourages engagement and builds your customer base and your level of shareability throughout it. So it'll build your presence quite substantially. And finally, we have in place a management strategy that will help you basically ensure that you're getting the return on investment you expect from your social media presence, and will, through the course of running the social media, actually help you identify things that are working, not working, and adjust them as you go through it. So it's quite a lot in a 3-month course, and it does require a commitment from you. Now, if you wanted to work with a typical digital agency to do this kind of work, they'd probably be quite happy for your business, but you'd also be paying quite a bit for it. So anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000 or more to basically work with a digital agency to put all that sort of things in place. Now, I understand small businesses. I've run a number of them myself, and I've worked with a lot of them. My normal price for doing all of that is $2,497. And that basically is to get you through that entire process so that you're confident, comfortable, you're implementing social media in an effective way for your business. Now, I do have a special on for the next 48 hours just for this people who are engaged through this webinar. So that's, you get all the same, all that course, all of that value for $1,197 paid up front, or for $497 per month over a 3-month period. So your choice in how you pay. but it gives you the flexibility to get involved and get engaged and actually ensure that you're getting what your business needs out of social media while getting the help that will actually ensure that you take it to the level you need for ongoing success. So I just want to check if there are any questions at this point. Just see if anything's come through in chat. You just put your questions up if you have any. Now, just specifically until midnight tonight, I have got an extra bonus for people on this webinar. So anybody who signs up from this webinar until midnight tonight will get a bonus copy of Social Media Planner. Now, this is my product that I developed, distilled down 20 years of digital engagement experience. I've been using the tool for about 6 years with organizations in various formats, and this is the first commercial release of the product. It normally retails at $49.50, but you will get a free deck, and it basically will help you plan your social media. You can sit around a table and actually develop a social media strategy using Social Media Planner. So that's a special bonus if you sign up. So thank you very much for your time today. We got through it all quite quickly, so there's a bit of time for questions if anybody has any. But I appreciate the time. What I'll do is I'll stop the webinar here and we'll keep taking questions, and you can keep asking for the next 10 minutes or so. I'm quite happy to continue to engage with you through chat. So thank you very much again for your time today. I hope that gave you some value. If you want some more value out of it, please sign up to that coaching course. As I said, 48-hour offer for $1,197, or that easy 3-month payment plan of $497 per month. So thank you for your time, and goodbye.